and make your voice heard across South Sudan.
Welcome to the Sundown Show. On this show, we bring you the movers and shakers of South Sudan and the world over. We engage in debates and discussions that unearth the stories behind the news. And we have our light moments too by chit-chatting about issues that affect our day-to-day life. Stay right here on the Sundown. Join in and be part of the show on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan.
أهلا ومرحبا بكم في برنامج سانداون على آي راديو. في البرنامج ده بنستضيف شخصيات بارزة ومؤثرة من جنوب السودان ومن حول العالم، وبنتحدث معاهم عن القضايا اللي بتهم بلدنا وبتأثر على حياتنا. كمان بنتطرق في القصص خلف الأخبار وبنتبادل الأحاديث الخفيفة عن حياتنا اليومية. شاركونا، كونوا جزء من البرنامج فقط على آي راديو، عينك على جنوب السودان.
Hello and welcome to the Sundown Show on iRadio with me, Madrama James. We begin this show by focusing on the bilateral relations between South Sudan and Sudan following South Sudan's independence on 9th July 2011. Sudan became the first country in the world to recognize the independence of South Sudan. However, relations between South Sudan and Sudan have remained poor, with both sides accusing each other of supporting rebels in other territories, shutting down of oil, and recently the forceful deportation of women by Sudanese authority. The big question is, what went wrong? To discuss the twist of this event, I'm joined live in the studio by Dr. Kwel Jok, researcher, founder of Law Testimonies and lecturer at Wow Bor Rumbek and University of Juba. Now, before we shed more light on this, to let you know that the Deputy Speaker of the National Legislative Assembly has directed the committee in the Parliament to take up the issue of the South Sudanese women deported to South Sudan with their children. The directives comes after a member of parliament, Stephen Ball, informed the August House that a Sudanese authority deported the women with children. Honorable Stephen Ball spoke in parliament during an extraordinary meeting today, and this is what he had to say in this exclusive report.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I'm Stephen Bolle, MP representing Mayom County in Unity State, Asfialamayo. My point of information to honorable members is about the situation of our citizens in Sudan. Right Honorable Speaker, there is a repeat incident used to happen in Sudan, and we are not paying attention about it. It happened that now the Sudanese government is deporting South Sudanese. Wherever they get you, they just deport you, we're leaving the children behind. Either he is a mother or father, and then they deport them to the border town of Rang. So this scenario, it has to be stopped by the Sudanese government. Because if they want to deport our people, let's deport all the family. You cannot deport the mother and you leave the children behind. So this is inhuman. Therefore, I call for the government of Sudan to at least take another measures, so that to consider that South Sudanese have a right to stay and live in Sudan, as well as they are here now. Otherwise, thank you.
That was Honorable Stephen Bolale raising the concern right there. However, the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, Honorable Parmena Awiriol Aluang, who presided over the sitting, stated the issue is a serious one. He directed the head of the committee, including Foreign Affairs, Humanitarian, Human Rights and Defense, to look into the matter. Now, let's listen to the Deputy Speaker responding to the concern raised by the MP.
The issue of Stephen that you have raised, I got this one actually in the media. It is very, very serious. You cannot deport the mother and leave the children. What sort of deportation is that? If you want to take all the Southern Sudanese who are there in the north, you take them as family. The children, the mother, and the men. So you bring them back to Republic of South Sudan. But you cannot leave children. Who will take care of the children? So that is a very serious issue. The Committee of Foreign Affairs, the chairperson is here. The issue which was raised, Honorable Chair Joseph Malwan, is that the Sudanese government deported Southern Sudanese women and leave the children in the Khartoum. Only women and leave the children there. So the men the men might have been here in South Sudan. The women were the one who remained there with the children. So Honorable Joseph, you just coordinate this one with the Foreign Affairs. One. You are one of the security, so it is good. So you coordinate also with Joseph, and then humanitarian also for the people who have been deported. So three of you have to work on that. Human rights, William, you also have to join. Say that these committees, no, I put humanitarian, US for human rights, and then security, and then foreign affairs. So these committees should meet and work on this issue. What will be the issue?
Honorable Deputy Speaker Parmela Awiriol Luang, directing all the relevant institutions to intervene and now to shed more light on these relations between South Sudan and Sudan, and plus the role of that Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I would like to welcome Dr. Kwel Jok in the studio. And first, how do you describe the current relation between South Sudan and Sudan, especially in the context of recent deportation of women without their children? And this comes at the time when President Salva Kiir sent his message to the current Minister of Foreign Affairs, went to Sudan, and the minister described the relationship, relationship as very vital, and described the relationship as vivid. Now comes in less than a week such a saga. What do you have to say? Welcome, Dictor.
Thank you very much for the iRadio. I really appreciate to discuss this vital issue. And it is a serious issue. It affects the relationship. Our president sent the last and the top diplomat, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, to Port Sudan. And then when he went to Port Sudan, he came back and reported to the public that the visit was successful and the relationships between the two states are amicable. This was not practical in the events which took place after his return immediately. The rights which were allowed because Sudanese or South Sudanese who are residing in the northern Sudan or in North Sudan, or you call it territorial state called Sudan, there are two people who never left after independence. They remain there because they have their properties, they have their own houses, so they didn't leave to come to South Sudan. Second group, this group was considered as refugees because after the catastrophic episodes which took place in 2013, majority of South Sudanese, they moved to that territory called Sudan as refugees. So dealing with this situation, those who were not refugees are there, but those who were refugees are there. And then the Sudan government decided, or what they call Port Sudan government decided abruptly to collect them. It violates the rights of movement. It violates the rights to own your property, and it violates the rights of children who were just separated with their mothers and their fathers, and the political status. Because if you are a refugee, you are protected by the Convention of 1951, Refugees Convention. So this report of the minister was mediocre, and it was an intellectual mockery to the mind of South Sudanese, because it doesn't show any truth. Yeah.
And now, some people or concerned citizens says the government is quiet about this issue, and more especially the political relations with Sudan, because of what South Sudan is also getting from Sudan. What's your take on that?
It is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who is supposed to be proactive in this action. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is led by somebody who is naive. He doesn't know the diplomatic behavior, because what we call the rights of the Sudanese and the rights of the South Sudanese residing within the territory of Sudan, they are protected by the memorandum that was signed. It is not a memorandum, it was an agreement signed in 2012 that the two sisterly citizens who are living in South Sudan, they would be protected by the government of South Sudan, and they have a right to own and to do business and to settle and to own properties. The same applies to the South Sudanese who are living within the territory of Sudan. Now, if the Sudan government based in Port Sudan is violating those rights of the South Sudanese, it is obligatory and it is an obligation which the law imposes on the Sudan government to protect the citizens of South Sudan. And who can say this? It is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a kind of a person, is headed by a kind of person who is not really, is moving up and down, deceiving the president, reporting things which are not true.
Now, I know we don't have at the moment the representative here or the spokesperson to respond to your allegation, but still, how will the deportation of that women from Sudan affect the diplomatic ties between South Sudan and Sudan?
It affects because international law, charter, or what they call UN Charter, Article 1, sub 1 and 2, it says that the relationship between the two or among the nations must be respected. What is the respect here? It is the nations. In the nations is referred to the territory. It is referred to the people who are residing in those territories. And if they are not respected, then it becomes...
Maybe probably put it on...
It becomes a problem that international law is violated. And who can correct this? It is the Minister of Foreign Affairs who will come out immediately to say that the UN Charter has been violated and challenge the government of the Republic of Sudan.
All right. And now, despite all this, we still have many South Sudanese who are still trapped in Sudan. In your view, what are the main challenges facing more especially South Sudanese in managing that cross-border relations with Sudan?
We have a good number of South Sudanese who are now trapped there. It is obligatory and it is an obligation to the government of the Republic of South Sudan to contact the government of Sudan based in Port Sudan to allow the peaceful process of transporting those people who are there willingly, because taking them by force is prohibited by international law because they are there as refugees. And you don't round up a refugee and you send him back to original place which he left under threat of security or whatsoever. So those who are there, they cannot be rounded up. They are protected by international law as refugees. Second, those who are willing to come back, then the government of South Sudan has an obligation to facilitate them come back to their country. So these are two different components.
Now, apart from all the diplomatic engagement you talked about, we all know that Sudan and South Sudan shared a very long history. Now, how can the two countries strengthen its diplomatic effort to protect vulnerable populations such as the women and children affected by the recent incident that happened in Sudan?
You know, under international law, there is what we call the principle of reciprocity. When the government of Sudan, based in Port Sudan, started immediately to deny the movement of the South Sudanese, the right to movement, and then deny and transporting them by force, rounding them up by force, and then avoiding the principle of respect to privacy, going to their rooms, and then separating children with their parents. These are all violations. The same situation would have been done immediately by the government of South Sudan to do the same as a reflection of the principle of reciprocity. That principle was derived from the Mosaic law. An eye with an eye. If you pluck away my eye, then justice must be done. So it is the establishment of justice. However, a responsible government of the Republic of South Sudan is compelled to acknowledge that the citizens who are living within the territorial sovereignty of South Sudan are classified in two ways. Some they were there before independence. Mm-hmm. Some came after the war took place in Sudan. Sudan now is classified into two capital cities. One is in Nyala, which is bordering the Republic of South Sudan, and then one is in Port Sudan, is not bordering. But the population which is here is very huge, the population from Sudan. So the South Sudan government refrained from applying the international law by rounding them up, sending them to Sudan because of the respect to law. So the solution is that the two principles, our President Salva Kiir Mayardit and the one of Sudan, who is called Burhan, they should talk and discuss and reach a consensus to address this issue. And nobody who would have initiated it, it is the Minister of Foreign Affairs to put into their attention that there is a danger. International law has been violated because it is the purpose of the relationship is to maintain peace and security. But the behavior of Port Sudan constitutes a violation of peace and security.
Now, another concern is talking about these women who were forcibly deported to Upper Nile State. Some left their families, more especially the children in Sudan. What needs to be done urgently to reunite the families?
There are two approaches here, a political will and a judicial will, because taking separation of mothers or with their kids or parents with their small children constitutes a crime which is punishable. And therefore, the government of South Sudan should now begin to make two approaches. Political will to influence the government of Sudan to bring back these children. Failure to do that, then they have to go to court to claim that these children has to be returned on the judicial process.
We all know some parts of Sudan is still in conflict, but what step should be taken to protect and help those South Sudanese that are still in Sudan?
The only way is the Minister of Foreign Affairs to emphasize the importance of international law, because those are the territory and even the areas which are controlled by the rapid support. The international humanitarian law compels the militia who is in effective control of a territory to take charge and to keep peace and security. So the South Sudanese who are in the territory of Port Sudan, the law dictates Port Sudan government to protect the South Sudanese and their properties. The same applies to the areas which are under control of rapid support forces, which are, of course, they are protecting the South Sudanese. I never heard of any incident, but the responsible person, the government which is recognized internationally and regionally, is based in Port Sudan, and is the one misbehaving now, violating the international instruments. And this is very dangerous. The Sudanese must be told that you are violating international norms and laws which international law imposes on them.
Still, let's talk about honoring agreement. South Sudan and Sudan signed an agreement in 2012, but still some challenge the faith of that particular agreement, that it's not being honored by the two countries. Now things are, keep on happening. What should be done to honor agreements like the one of 2012?
There is nothing to be honored now. The focus of the people of South Sudan, the government of South Sudan should attempt to bring these people to its territory, those who are willing. Those who are willing, because Sudan is not any longer a secured zone, because there is violence, destruction, people have been killed, and every day there is insecurity. So that is the step. However, Port Sudan is not willing to protect, and the emphasis is that the Minister of Foreign Affairs should focus, because the only purpose for the establishment of governments under domestic laws or international law is the protection of nationals. And if the nationals are not protected, then you are not a Minister of Foreign Affairs.
All right, dear listener, if in case you have just joined us, you are most welcome, and you're listening to the Sundown Show Now Radio with me, Madrama James. And today I'm blessed to have Dr. Quell, a researcher and a lecturer, and the debate is focusing on what measures needs to be taken to improve cooperation between South Sudan and Sudan following the deportation of women by Sudanese authority to reign in Upper Nile State. Let's have a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be giving you that chance on 0911-022-986 for you to ask you a good question to my guest in the studio right here.
For news and the music, keep it
It's a Baghdad Diamond Wenisuma iRadio على نمرة التليفون 0911-986-986 أو يرسل رسالة على نمرة 0913-986-986.
نعم فرصة لك نسمع من أول مخالة مع راديو.
Madrama jami.
نعم جوزيف كوني.
Kani min lamana sanda
نعم.
ana berahibu ipitana ala ipitana jati studio. Anja paralena haja lamul nafsu ben حكومة السودان ونفس السودان على جادين في السودان. أنا بسندي اثنين سؤال عندنا صار بأكو بتاعي. مشكلة ده شنو؟ في misunderstanding between the two countries between South Sudan and Sudan. في misunderstanding between the two countries. Misunderstanding material. There is no smoke with fire. And في misunderstanding أصلاً كرار ولا حاجة حاصل because PABCD مبرا president between the two countries, the two countries. So nimradin ase yara sevi ragde almekin hasil kan mutu wala wodru mara wai demu ni bukun motul في losses alamun nefsu de لأن في ناس جال يقف في السوق يقف في السكة مو بدأت مالي يجي مع البوليس يجي في البوليس سؤال إذا العربية صحيح.
نعم.
أنا درا يا أستاذ قال لي مولي بكون مسؤول في حاجات لأن ما هو المرة هذا أنا يوم دعوة ناس بتاعنا دعوة في السودان أكره جري كان جيبه مشكلة يقولي أنا ما بيتك السودان يمكن ناس كدارو.
نعم شكرا. شكرا خالص. أخونا جوزيف كواني من لبنان قال طبعا ما في دكان مدون نار في مشكلة بين جنوب السودان والسودان ودر عرفوا نمرة 2 يالا الفرقومن مع معادلو مثلا ما ببطال لكن لو في جانا جامود منيا باخد مسؤولية بالخامل في انترناشونال لو هاي راديو. مساء النور. منو؟ دافيد مرحب.
شكرا خالص للبرنامج الثاني وشكرا خالص للضيوف اللي انا جاي لنا في الاستوديو وزورنا. فانا مرتاح خالص عشان انا بعرف مسؤول بتاعي ريبريزنتيف من بارلمنت. السؤال بتاعي اللي هو بيقول أجات الغاني لسه في السودان طبعا قبل كم شهور ورا ناس مخلصة من السودان قال بينه جنوبين ناس زايد عملون البطارية ما في البطارية بتاعته ثانيا وأنا قالت مقابلة وقال كمان قال بينه يجي في السودان من دون رياض بتكون أجات علينا قام البريد السودان ينام ده يعني جنوبين ولا
نعم سؤالك كتاب شنو؟
سؤال بتاعي قال ليه أكشن يعني من بسيطة جاب بريء كده ما هو ثانيا كمان سؤال تاني ليه معلوم مرة أسأله كلام الحمى من ناس يقدمون من السودان الناس في بودر ولما كانوا راسلوا من السودان لساوث السودان.
شكرا جزيلا أخونا دافيد. نسمع من داي راديو. راديو؟
لا.
نعم.
مساء الخير.
مساء النور.
معك دين سانتفو.
مرحبا دين.
أنا دا أعرف الزول الواقع في الاستوديو ده هل شغال في وزارة الخارجية تاجلوا السودان ولو شنو؟
دكتور هو researcher founder بتاع law testimony وكمان هو lecturer.
أيوة أنا سألت كده ليه؟ لأن أنا داير واحد من الخارجية وزارة الخارجية بتاع جنوب السودان. أنت بتستضيفه لأن الحاجة أصل في السودان ده حاجة ما تغير ده حاجة كبير شديد لأنه وزير الخارجية ماشي السودان هو النساجات علاقة بين السودان وجنوب السودان والكلام بتاع البترول والنسو وما ذكر ما قال اللي وصل هنا الجاليات القاعدين في السودان وبرايهم السفير بتاع جنوب السودان ناس عايشين كيف ما سالوا ركب طيارة رجع جوبا والناس عرفوهم بالكشة ما دون يال جابهم دفقوهم في السكة عشان كده ده مسؤولية بتاع خارجية. أنا كنت من واحد من الخارجية يجي في سوريا عشان يجي يوري للشعب بتاع جنوب السودان هل هو الخارجية بتاع منه والناس البرا جنوبين في يوغندا في أمريكا في وين كله تابعين لمنه ولا ما هذا عينه خارجية ولا يعمل السفارة دور بتاعهم وين ولا انتوا دايرين عشان نعمل رد فعل عشان نعمل كشف بالسودانيين اللي قاعدين هنا كله في كل ولايات العشر وثلاثة إداريات نعمل لهم كشف برضه زي ما بيعملوا كشف لأنه ساوي ما يسأل حكومة السودان بينه الناس ديل زي انت ما داير ولا انت ما بلغت السفارة بتاع جنوب السودان الكلام ده جيمل ما صاير ده كلام كبير شديد. فقبل ما نقدر نتصرف نينا دايرين الخارجية يكون واضح.
شكرا جزيلا. ناسمع من داير راديو. نعم ارجع تاني في 09 واحد ولا 22 986 986 راديو.
مدرما جيمس. الو هاي مدرما.
نعم انا معك.
هاي معك تلفوقة. هاي انا بسلم انت وزول القاعد في الاستديو.
نعم
حاول اجا الموضوع بتاع ناس العوين اللي كان ديفورد من السودان لجنوب السودان ده الموضوع ده ما سايل. الموضوع ده ما داير ناس بتاع ناس الوزارات التانيين داير ناس الوزارة بتاع الوزارة الخارجية عشان يشروا الكلام ده تمام عشان يعني يخش في الراس بتاع المواطنين بتاع جنوب السودان. لكن للأسف الزول القاعد في اليسير ده ما تقبلوا للوزارة الخارجية. هل العلاقة بتاعه عشان يخلوا عشان يكون يتكلم فوقه في الاستديو عشان يعني قاعدين نسمع شنو العلاقة بتاعه عشان يخلوه عشان يتكلم الموضوع ده شنو؟ لأنه دارين الزول بيتكلم الموضوع ده وبعد بكرة نسمع الكلمة كويس ويعني يكون جميل. لكن للأسف هل على حاجة بعمله زي الأخوم بتاع السودان عملوا ده؟ هل أننا الجنوبيين لو أخوم بتاعنا وكون بتاع مواطنين وكون بتاع شعب بتاع جنوب السودان ليه يخلي على حاجات الأصل في أسبوع الفات وصوت بتاعه أننا ما قاعدين نسمع؟ هل شنو عشان الوزارة الخارجية بتاع جنوب السودان ما مسؤول للشعب بتاع جنوب السودان؟ الناس اللي جابوا ده ما جنوبيين؟
نعم شكرا جزيلا. وكمان مولانا في داخل الاستوديو باقي لناس حال قانون بتاع ريجون وكمان انترناشونال حال بوري لنينا شنو في مرحلة دي. نسمع من داي راديو. نعم مرحب.
أجاد الله تعالى أنا كل يتكلم مشارك هو كلامه ما بشال. أنت عارف أبرادر ولا أنا ما أعرف مستقرب للحكومة بتاعنا تاجين السودان. يعني في كم حاجات السودان ده كم بعملوا للجنوبيين أنا ما أعرف ناس ريس عملوا كلام ده لادمتين يعني. مين سنة كم؟ مين على كم مين قبل ما ينفصلوا قبل شنو كل حاجات رأس الجنوبيين كم مرة يعني بس يكون ماشي كده ناس بتحمل لادمتين.
نعم تابع ناشد شنو من حكومة ثيب. تابع ناشد شنو من حكومة بساد وزارة خارجية.
كلي دخل في موضوع وزارة خارجية كلي يكون إنه قرار كلي دخل في يعني ريل الجنوبيين كله في ساوث السودان يا ما كمان بيقولوا انه قرار هكذا، لكن انا بتمنى انه لو بطريقه ما جرت خلي الرجال الجنوبيين يجوا بس.
نعم. راديو أرجع في 0911 986 بودي فرصة لاثنين مكالمة يلا بعد كان بودي فرصة لمولانا عشان يجاوبوا كونسان ولا أصل تانين هل تم أصل بجاي ناسما من دبر هاي راديو. And I'm giving chance to two more lucky callers. Hi radio.
Hello.
Yes.
James Dana Santo في واو تاني.
نعم في حاجة تسيبه صح؟
في حاجة نسيبه.
يا سري كده عشان أنا ودي فرصة لباقي جماعة برا.
شكرا. أنا بقول القضية لو ما تذكران أن هنا بنطلع المظاهرات ونطرد السفير بتاع السودان في جنوبنا. إننا نعمل تابع في كل 10 ولايات و3 إداريات عشان نخرج مظاهرة سلمية نطرد أو نحرق سفارة.
نعم. دائما موضوع بتاع راغو سفارة ولا شنو آخر مكالمة في زمن بتاع ساي راديو. هاي راديو. نعم ناس كله قاعد ببوتي حلول لكن ده بس ما قال ترزو ناس ولا راغو السفارة. خير مكالمة هاي راديو.
الو هاي راديو.
نعم.
كوشاك من تيوكي.
مرحبا كوشاك.
الشيء اللي انا دايره طبعا ده المسؤولية بتاع وزارة الخارجية. اصلا لاجين هبنا في كل دول عنده مشاكل. وزارة الخارجية ما قاعد زي مشكلة بتاع كاكوما. ناس جو من كاكوما بقرى حتى حدود بتاع جنوب السودان دخلوا في تجارة التوريد. كويس موضوع بتاع السودان ده برضه أصعب من أصعب حاجات لأن برايلو نسوان وخلي عيال بتاعهم. فأنا دايرو وزارة الخارجية يتدخل عشان هو يقدر يعني يعمل سياسات كويس ويعمل ممكن يخش مع ناس زي UNHCR وعشان هنا منظمات يقوم السودان ذكر علاقات ما كويس. برضه لو في علاقات كويس أنا راجع يحصل علاقات بتاعنا مع السودان.
شكرا أخونا خشوك. توالي دكتور جوك وانا برحب تتا حال بقول شنو في كلمات الكل قال أسبتنا ونسو فيوده. مرحبا.
الأسئلة ديل مهمين شديد.
نعم.
لأنه ده الوعي اللي عنده ناس اللي مهتمين بأهلهم في السودان. السؤال الأول من جوزيف اللي كان بيقول الحكومة جنوب السودان عمل شنو في الموضوع ده مهم خالص. لكن أنا جبته قبل الحكومة لو كان يعني يعمل زي ما القانون الدولي بيطلب الحكومة كانت بتقوم ويجمع كل السودانيين القاعدين في أراضي بتاع جنوب السودان ويرسلهم إلى السودان. لكن حكومة بتاع جنوب السودان ما بتقوم بالكلام ده ليه؟ لأنه عندها التزامات دولية. القانون الدولي ما بيسمح إنه تشيل الزول في مال الحرب لأنهم قاعدين جزء لاجئين جزء جرى من الموت يعني بحثا عن المحل بتاع العمل فهو لاجئ. فالحكومة بتاع جنوب السودان ما بتعمل داك. فده حاجة قبل أنا قلته reciprocity law. It allows or permits or grants the government of South Sudan to react, round up all the Sudanese nationals residing within the Republic of South Sudan, send them back to their country. But that cannot happen. So that is the reason why the government of South Sudan, I'm not a spokesman of the government, I'm a professor, I'm not a, but I'm a South Sudanese concern. And I publish along this line legal books, political books, and therefore I have to give this light. The second question, which was, because there were so many questions, But the important area is that what is the fate of the children who are left behind and their parents are being deported to the Republic of South Sudan? That is the question which I gave two answers before, or two approaches. One, the government of South Sudan has an obligation under international law to claim the children who are separated with their parents from the government of Sudan by the means which are political, and the other means can be judicial. So these are two approaches. Concerning the person that was talking from WOW, and he was saying that if the government of South Sudan is not reacting, the Minister of Foreign Affairs is not reacting to address this issue, then they would go for a protest and burn down the embassy. That one is not acceptable under international law, because the embassy which is here is protected by the laws. That is what we call conventions, Geneva Conventions. It protects diplomatic missions within the territory. So that one is not permissible, but there is a right for protest to project out your rights that have been violated by the Republic of South Sudan. So I cannot prevent those who are going to demonstrate those things, but not to exercise or to implement violence, because violence is not acceptable.
Now, we also via our Facebook page, we have a comment coming in that this is coming in from Page Gadwich, that in such a situation, why there is no any other official statement from the government, and looking at this sensitive matter, ideally or legally, what is the foreign affairs is supposed to really carry it on or embark on now?
That question, that was the reason I blame the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because the Minister of Foreign Affairs represents the government of South Sudan in the foreign policy, and is the one to engage the region and international community to expose the atrocities which are committed by the government of Sudan. Because the government of Sudan has signed so many instruments, international instruments, and is obliged by those instruments to comply with them. And if it violates them, it is the Minister of Foreign Affairs to go against all those which have been violated, and to show to the region, show to the international community that the rights of my nationals, citizens who are residing within the territory of Sudan have been violated, infringed by the regime in Sudan. But the government, unfortunately, the minister has his own agenda, because he came back and reported to the head of state and government, Salva Kiir Mayardit, that there is peaceful relationship between the government of Sudan and the government of South Sudan. And then people were immediately rounded up, separated with their children. The rights of movement was blocked. Is that defines what he reported?
Yeah, just like I said, we leave that one now to the foreign affairs to come in and also explain their own part of the story. But we have a concern from David that now what actions need to be taken, because they already children who are separated from their mothers internationally. What is really the international and regional laws say in such a situation?
Yeah, these are major crimes, because this separation of children, they are governed by international law because the children are protected by the rights of the child. They are violated. And then it goes within because psychologically the child is affected, and that is what we call degrading treatment. So the judicial procedures can be initiated by individuals because when a crime is committed, then the government of Sudan has to be sued. That is one thing. The other thing is the approach of dialogue, that the government of Sudan is obliged under international law to collect these children, bring them back as soon as possible to their mother and their fathers. These are two approaches, and they have to be accelerated because separation of child is what we call enforced disappearance. It is another crime because enforced disappearance, children are made to disappear with them or they are kidnapped. That constitutes so many violations under international criminal law.
Now, we are almost coming to the end of our conversation, but still, what is your specific appeal to the families whose daughters or son, got separated with their loved one?
I am concerned. My moral conscience, I feel very sad on how the situation of a child now being separated from the mother and the feeling of the mother whom I saw when he was talking with the journalist in Rang, or I don't know which location was it, but I saw Michael Christopher was talking with a certain lady who was just kidnapped, and then the children are left behind, and then we received other information. Then children were rounded up and taken to far north to Madrama. I feel guilty. I feel disturbed in my mind, and therefore two ways are to be initiated. The government of the Republic of South Sudan is obliged by law to seek remedies, legal remedies. The government of South Sudan also is obliged by political will to seek political remedies. These are two approaches, and they have to be accelerated, expedited, because children are suffering.
All right. How about to the government and specifically to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
It is the Minister of Foreign Affairs. It is incumbent upon the Minister of Foreign Affairs to initiate tonight or now, not tomorrow, because the protection of your citizens, that is the basis of the Constitution. In our Constitution, the purpose of Constitution is to protect citizens and their properties. And if citizens are affected, then it is obligatory on the Republic of South Sudan through the Foreign Ministry to protect them. This is a protection of their rights of residents, of their rights as children to be with their mothers and their fathers.
All right. Finally, in regards to our debate, Dr. Kwel Joka, what is your last message?
My last message is that I am appealing to our president to take initiative, because the Minister of Foreign Affairs seems to be not a reliable minister, and he should immediately realize that the minister is not implementing the policies which are our constitutional obligations and international law obligations. He's just moving up, deceiving people, and he's not a practical person who can redeem this kind of situation. So I suggest that our president should interfere into this, either to remove the minister and put the right minister in the office to address all these concerns.
All right. Thank you. Indeed, that's your own opinion, but I would like to thank you so much for coming. And dear listener, up to here, we have come to the end of our conversation, focusing on measures that needs to be done to improve the relations between South Sudan and Sudan. I've been your host, Madrama James, and Dr. Quail, a joke researcher, founder of Law Testimonies, and lecturer. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing your insight with Sundown Show.
My pleasure.
This is iRadio. When contributing to a topic on the radio, please avoid statements